The most startling scandal in the history of the love and hip-hop industry has just occurred. The streets are ablaze with lurid rumors that Kirk Frost is not the father of Rasheeda, despite the fact that she is pregnant. Hold on, because it gets even messier if you think that's the most crazy aspect. When Kirk learned, he reportedly lost all control and confronted Rasheeda in a heated, explosive altercation that escalated to violence, according to sources close to the pair. Rumors that Rasheeda's covert pregnancy was revealed by a leaked private medical report have gone viral on social media. Supporters are in complete shock. How could this occur? Who is the biological father? And why did Kirk supposedly lose his temper when the truth was revealed? Tensions between Kirk and Rasheeda had reportedly been simmering for weeks, according to witnesses, but no one anticipated this. The couple's marriage, which was already shattered by previous betrayals and infidelity, might have reached a breaking point. Furthermore, startling video has emerged that depicts Kirk in an enraged, uncontrollable state. What actually transpired between them? We're going to reveal all the juicy details of this shocking controversy, so stay tuned. Suddenly, there was an uproar. No one anticipated it. In the beginning, it was only a hazy rumor circulating online. However, it quickly became an uncontrollable fire that spread throughout social media, celebrity news channels, and gossip websites. Rasheeda was expecting a child. That was startling enough on its own. However, the second element of the report, that Kirk Frost was not the father, was what really blew the internet up. Fans initially didn't believe it. Kirk and Rasheeda had, after all, had years of ups and downs, breakups, makeups, scandals, and rumors of infidelity. Rasheeda, however, had always been by Kirk's side. It was nearly unthinkable that she would become pregnant by someone else. The evidence, however, began to come to light. Official-looking medical records that revealed Rasheeda was pregnant were released by an unnamed source. Worse, according to a second source, Kirk had already undergone a DNA test, and the findings verified that he was not the father. Twitter took off right away. There's absolutely no way Rasheeda could have soiled Kirk in this way. One fan posted a tweet. "I don't even blame her if it's true, after what Kirk put her through." Someone else posted, "Kirk was in the dark the entire time." Hold up, who's TAEFO there? We need answers ASAP. He was unaware of the social media storm that was building while he was out performing errands. However, it was not long before his phone began to explode. Missed phone calls, text messages, alerts. His heart fell when he at last looked at his phone. They were all over the headlines. Kirk Frost isn't the father. A reality TV star gets involved in a pregnancy scandal. Who is Rasheeda's real baby daddy? According to sources, Kirk initially couldn't believe it. Hoping it was a misunderstanding or some cruel joke, he continued checking his phone. However, his anger increased as he read more. He is said to have mumbled, "Nah, this can't be real." However, something inside of him snapped when he discovered the DNA results that had been disclosed. According to witnesses, Kirk lost it. He is accused of throwing his phone across the room and hitting a wall with it. Locals claim to have witnessed Kirk walking back and forth, shaking his head, and muttering obscenities. "I must speak with her immediately," he allegedly screamed. Kirk phoned Rasheeda right away. Once, twice, 3 times, no response. That simply made matters worse. Kirk said, "Oh, so now she don't want to pick up?" before snatching up his keys and leaving. His mind racing, he pushed through traffic and hurried home. His mind went over every situation that might possibly happen. Was it accurate? Had he been deceived by Rasheeda? Was this a convoluted setup, or what? However, Kirk realized something was wrong as soon as he entered the room. As composed as ever, Rasheeda was scrolling through her phone while seated on the couch. Kirk said in a deadly quiet, "You got something to tell me?" Rasheeda looked up just a little. She mumbled, not even trying to look astonished. "What are you talking about?" Kirk became agitated at that. "Rasheeda, you know quite well what I'm talking about, so don't play dumb." Rasheeda let out a loud sigh and tossed her phone to the side. "Kirk, I don't have time for this." That response was incorrect. Her phone was on the couch when Kirk grabbed it and shattered it on the floor. Do you AKV know time? Who the hell's baby why is VS? You do on hey time. According to witnesses, Kirk was totally insane. He had a hot face, trembling hands, and labored breathing. Rasheeda, though, she flinched just a little. I am expecting a child. All you need to know is that, she responded at last. Kirk yelled, and I am no TDA father. Rasheeda looked him in the eyes and shrugged. That was it. Guess not. Kirk lost his temper. Magazines and candles flew as he kicked over the coffee table. He made a visible dent in the wall with his blow. After your everything I did for you, you are real. This is not real. You she on Annie. Rasheeda shook her head and chuckled icily. Her voice was quiet but deadly. Everything you did for me. Kirk, do you really want to go there? Kirk was furious. His hands clenched so tightly that his knuckles became white. You really want to act like you some perfect husband? Like you never cheated on me? Never embarrassed me in front of the whole damn world? He asked. Rasheeda, that isn't the point, she retorted. That's 8xac to lie the point. Things were starting to become dangerous now. Kirk moved in closer, putting his face just inches away from Rasheeda's. Identify the person, he snarled. Now, Rasheeda, however, declined. She turned aside, picked up her handbag, and headed upstairs. Oh, so you're just going to leave? Kirk shouted as he followed her. Kirk sprang forward and grabbed her wrist, saying, I don't owe you an explanation, Kirk. Let go of me, Kirk. Until you tell me the truth, you ain't going here. Rasheeda yanked her arm away and screamed. Just then, there was a huge crash that reverberated throughout the home. One of the chairs fell down. One of the lamps broke on the ground. Security was summoned at that point. The whole neighborhood was bustling by this point. Reporters were yelling, cameras blazing, and paparazzi were already outside. Is Rasheeda all right? We heard screams. Kirk, did you really attack her? Security officers hurried in and separated the two. Kirk's face was contorted with anger, his hands were shaking, and he was breathing heavily. He whispered, You better tell me the truth, Rasheeda, one final time. Rasheeda, however, merely grinned. You'll find out soon enough. Then she abruptly left, leaving Kirk standing there, utterly broken. However, the drama was far from ended. Because everything changed when a bizarre video appeared online a few hours later. Kirk's world fell apart the instant his phone screen appeared with leaked video of Rasheeda in a hotel room. His mind was racing in a million different directions. His breathing became shallow, and his hands tightened around his phone. What the hell is this? He mumbled to himself as he repeatedly viewed the video, seemingly in the hopes that it would change. But no, it was there, as plain as day. Rasheeda, in that dark hotel room sitting, acknowledging that the child wasn't his. The worst part then arrived. The instant when the nameless man, the baby's father, appeared briefly enough to give a glimpse of his face, and Kirk's stomach dropped. Kirk got a bad feeling that he recognized the man, despite the grainy, low-quality video. However, he required verification, because everything was going to blow up if that was who he believed it to be. Kirk's head clouded with rage, so he grabbed his car keys off the counter and stormed out of the home. At first, his body was acting instinctively, and he wasn't even aware of where he was driving. Then his phone buzzed once more. A fresh alert. Rasheeda's leaked confession. View video. Kirk tapped the link, his knuckles turning white. The video went past the scene he had previously viewed this time. Rasheeda shook as she said, I never meant for things to happen like this on the video. In the video, the man sighed deeply. But is he aware of it? Does Kirk know? Rasheeda's shoulders fell with fatigue as she wiped her face. He's been acting strangely recently, like if he suspects something, but I don't believe he has any evidence as of yet. Then the incident that totally broke Kirk came. In the footage, the unidentified man moved forward just enough for a portion of his face to be illuminated, and Kirk recognized the person instantly. His whole body became really cold, because Kirk never anticipated the man in that room. Someone too near home, and Kirk felt his hold on reality loosening at that same instant. His heart thumping wildly, he muttered, "Oh, hell no." He slammed the brakes, hammered the steering wheel until his knuckles ached, and veered the car onto a side street before he even realized what he was doing. He was unable to breathe. He was unable to think. It felt like an impending explosion in his chest. Because Kirk's whole life was a lie if the video was authentic and Rasheeda was carrying the man's child. Every instant and every sign he disregarded flashed across his thoughts. Rasheeda dismissed the calls in the middle of the night, the rapid mood swings, the covert looks. Sometimes she would claim to be going out with pals, but something didn't feel quite right. Kirk had also overlooked it. Nah, she wouldn't do me like that, he had justified to himself. However, she did. The entire world now knew before he did. Fury clouded his vision as he reached for his phone and dialed Rasheeda's number. On the first ring, she responded. "Kirk," she said softly, as if she had anticipated it. "Avoid." His voice boomed across the phone. "KRK." "Me." "What the hell is this? Who is he?" There was a prolonged silence during which Kirk's heart thumped in his ears. Rasheeda finally said, "Come home. We must speak." Kirk nearly crushed the phone in his hand. "Talk? Speak? Do you think I want to Kirk, just get home." Click. She hung up. And that only made Kirk more furious. Oh, hell no. Someone leaked the news, and now the whole world was watching him break down. Kirk ignored the reporters, stormed through the front door, and slammed it behind him. He didn't waste any more time, putting the car into gear and speeding off towards their house. By the time he pulled into the driveway, paparazzi were already there, their cameras flashing wildly as he jumped out of the car. "Tell me that video is fake," Kirk urged in a low, menacing voice, and Rasheeda's lips opened slightly, but she remained silent. Rasheeda was already waiting, standing in the living room with her arms crossed, her face unreadable. That was all the assurance Kirk needed, and his world fell apart. "You lied to me," he said in a betraying whisper, and Rasheeda finally looked him in the eye. "I didn't lie, Kirk," he said. "Simply put, I didn't tell you." With a sour chuckle, Kirk said, "You just didn't me. Consequently, I must discover the rest of the world." "It's not like that, Kirk," Rasheeda said, inhaling deeply as if she were preparing herself. "I intended to inform you. I simply, waited AFOR to BBY to APER and LOOK like him." "Don't do that," Rasheeda said, flinching as her face flushed with annoyance. "Don't pretend that you've been a saint the entire time." "Oh my God, no, don't you dare try to fool me. KRK, I'm not letting anything slip. I'm just saying." "Rasheeda, who is he?" Silence. Rasheeda's eyes darted to the side, like she was scared to say it out loud. And in that moment, Kirk knew. "It's him, isn't it?" Rasheeda remained silent. "I swear to God, Rasheeda." She eventually raised her chin, her voice firm. "I think you should leave, Kirk." Kirk sighed sharply, his whole body shaking with rage. Kirk's thoughts were racing as he gazed at her. Are you truly going to discard everything for him? Rasheeda's jaw tightened, her hands clenching into fists. I already did. After hearing those comments, Kirk realized that this was far from done. Not by a long shot. Kirk was going to make sure of it. As he stood there, his hands locked into tight fists, and his chest rising and falling quickly, Rasheeda's words replayed in his mind, each one piercing his heart more deeply than the last. I already did, Kirk said. She had already thrown everything away, including their history, marriage, and everything they had created together. And for what purpose? For some other man. Kirk's eyes hazed with anger, betrayal, and shock. How did this happen? How did his whole existence turn into a soap opera in the blink of an eye? The tension in the room was so high that it felt like it may blow up at any moment. "You better tell me right now who the hell he is." Kirk stepped forward, his voice dangerously low. Rasheeda's jaw tightened, her eyes darting to the side, but she didn't want to say it because she knew that if Kirk learned the truth, things would turn really ugly really quickly. Kirk's patience finally gave out. "I said, who is he?" The weight of their shared secrets made the walls of their once loving house feel like they were closing in on them both, strangling them. Then, the hush was broken by a voice behind them. "Kirk, I think you should relax." Kirk turned slowly, his breath stopping in his throat, and froze because of that sound, that terrible voice. The man who had ruined everything was standing in the doorway, brave as hell, as if he were supposed to be there. He acted as though he was entitled to be in Kirk's home, and that he had already replaced Kirk. When Kirk's eyes finally met his face, chaos ensued as Kirk sprang forward, his anger erupting like a volcano. "UMOTHERF." Rasheeda leaped between them, pressing her hands as hard as she could against Kirk's chest. "KRK, STOPIT, Hewitt." Kirk, however, was seeing red, his whole body burning with rage, and his fists ready to swing, but he was not hearing any of that. Because the man in front of him was a man he had trusted, someone he had never anticipated, someone who had been in his life for years, a man who had been around his family, and a man who was one of his closest friends. Kirk couldn't breathe after having visited their home innumerable times and attending their wedding. Now he was the father of Rasheeda's child. The room seemed to be whirling, and he thought the floor had disappeared. How long? His so-called buddy, the man who had deceived him, raised his chin and refused to take his eyes from Kirk's harsh voice, which was filled with raw, unadulterated agony. Sometime, that was it. For a time. As if it didn't matter, as if this was a careless error. Kirk's hands trembled at his sides as he laughed bitterly and without humor. "Wow. Whoa. So you were having an affair with my wife all this time while I was out here calling you my brother and defending you?" As if Kirk was being dramatic, his pal dared to sigh and say, "Kirk, listen. Do you want? You dare not attempt to explain this. I swear to God that I'm going to. Enough now." Rasheeda's voice broke through the confusion, but Kirk hardly heard her because he was too preoccupied with the memories of the times he had trusted this man, the times they had spent together, the times Rasheeda had grinned at him, laughed at his jokes, and pretended everything was fine, all the while in deceit. Kirk, looking at Rasheeda with a betrayed expression, felt like he was going crazy. "So this was the big secret, huh? You were skulking about with his person." Rasheeda's face contorted with remorse, but Kirk noticed something else in her eyes as well. Defiance. It seemed as though she had already made up her mind and wasn't even ashamed. "Kirk, I'm done lying. I've had enough of acting. You don't get to ACT, like the VICTI here, do you?" Kirk's so-called friend came forward as his chest heaved and his whole body vibrated with rage. "Kirk, you have to go. That was the last straw. Required me to leave. Do I have you to go? This is my home, BGRO. No longer." Quietness. Like a goods train, the weight of those words struck Kirk. "What did you just say?" "Kirk, I'm filing for divorce," Rasheeda said, her eyes dropping as if she couldn't stand to face him in the eye. The room felt as though the air had been forced out. No, you're not serious," he said, feeling as though the walls were closing in on him. "Right now, you're not being serious." Rasheeda swallowed hard, blinking back tears. "I am. Kirk, I'm done." "Oh, you're finished? Are you doing?" After IV2MPLEEER white-hating FRU. After everything we experienced. Kirk realized that Rasheeda was truly choose him as her features stiffened, choosing his so-called friend, choosing to set everything on fire, and Kirk shook his head, laughing deeply and bitterly, feeling as though he had been repeatedly stabbed in the back. "Rasheeda, you're going to regret this. You two are." "Just leave, man," said his so-called friend calmly as he moved closer. Kirk turned to face him, his eyes blazing with passion. "Bro, you had better hope I don't see you again. Because if I rushed Kirk hardly heard Rasheeda's piercing voice, because at that precise moment, all he could hear was the sound of his own heart cracking and his life collapsing before his very eyes. There was nothing he could do about it, but he knew that this was far from over. Kirk stood still, watching his whole life fall apart in front of him. He could feel his pulse in his temples, the wrath simmering beneath his skin like a ticking time bomb, and the room became smaller and more oppressive as Rasheeda's words replayed in his mind like a never-ending nightmare. Pregnant, but not with his child. "Kirk, I'm going to file for divorce. This is finished." This wasn't one of their typical arguments, and they weren't going to brush it off. Despite Rasheeda's uncanny composure, Kirk could hear the finality in her tone. "You believe that you can simply say that and go." Kirk took a step forward, his eyes blazing with anger and pain, and his voice was harsh and tight in his throat. "You really going to toss everything away like that?" Rasheeda let out a breath, her face unreadable. "Kirk, everything was discarded a long time ago. You simply failed to notice." Kirk began to say, "That's bull." But Rasheeda interrupted, saying, "No, it's not. Kirk, you succeeded. You shoved me away. I was broken by you. And you want to play the victim now that I've done something for you at last. This isn't about me acting like no damn victim, Rasheeda," Kirk said with a sour laugh while wiping his face. "You're running about and doing dirty work behind my back, and then you're trying to make it seem like I deserve it." His voice was growing irritated and incredulous. "You believe I orchestrated this?" With her own rage rising to the surface, Rasheeda retorted, "You think I wanted this? I forgave you for years, Kirk, looking the other way for years. I hoped you would change for years. However, you never did. What the heck? This was how you got even." Kirk's jaw clenched, his fists trembling at his sides. "No, Kirk. This was how I chose myself," Rasheeda said, her eyes glistening, but she refused to back down. Quietness. There was a heavy, thick stillness from which none of them could break, and then a knock at the door. Kirk's stomach fell, and after a moment of inaction, Rasheeda took a big breath and went over to open the door. And there he was, the tall, self-assured, unconcerned man Kirk had never wanted in his home. Kirk, the father of Rasheeda's unborn child, became enraged and exclaimed, "What the hell are you doing here?" The man entered without hesitation, his eyes meeting Kirk's, his voice dangerously low, his whole body trembling with wrath. "We must speak. We have absolutely nothing to discuss." "Oh, I believe we do. Kirk, I want you to understand something," the man said, crossing his arms and refusing to back down. "Rasheeda, she is no longer yours. And this infant, that's my kid." That was it. At that, Kirk lost his temper and suddenly sprang at him, slamming his fist into the man's chin and sending him reeling back against the wall. "Kirk," Rasheeda yelled, attempting to yank him away, but Kirk had heard enough and had delivered one blow. "You think you can just woe out hockey in my house?" Then another, and another. The man tried to fight back, but Kirk was red-faced and out for blood. "You think you can take what's mine?" Kirk yelled, slamming his fist into the man's face once more. Crash. The living room was in disarray after a lamp struck the floor and glass broke. "Kirk, enough." Rasheeda's voice broke in fear, but he didn't hear her, and now he wanted someone else to experience that agony after losing everything. Then, bang. The door flew open once more. "Exitme. Security Rasheeda." Kirk thrashed against them, his rage still burning. The other man wiped blood from his lip, breathing heavy but smirking. "You done now?" he said in a scornful, patronizing tone. "You Lucy Keli, they still PPDNE," Kirk shouted, still trying to break free. "Nah," the man chuckled, shaking his head. "I ain't lucky." Kirk, it was you who lost. And in the depths, you are aware of it. Kirk knew it was over, even though his body tightened and his fists trembled. Rasheeda then did something that broke what was left of Kirk's soul. She approached the man, caressed his face, and asked him if he was all right. It wasn't Kirk, the man she had been married to for years. Kirk felt something worse than anger, worse than betrayal, and he felt replaced. Not the guy she had formed a family with, but him. With something in her eyes that he couldn't quite identify, Rasheeda turned to face him and said, "Kirk, you have to leave." "Pardon me?" Kirk blinked. "You must go out." "This is my house now," she said in a quiet but forceful voice. Kirk laughed hollowly and said, "Are you really doing this? Are you really going to eject me?" Rasheeda's lips parted slightly, like she was hesitating, but then she said it. The words that sealed his fate. "It's already done, Kirk." Kirk's feet felt like lead as security began to bring him to the door. He tried to say, "Rasheeda, don't do this," one final time, but she turned away and remained silent, which hurt more than anything else. The door shut behind him. Even though his hands were still shaking and his thoughts was still racing, Kirk knew deep down that it was over as he stood on the porch and gazed at the house that had once been his. And there you have it, people. Kirk Frost had lost for the first time in his life. Not just the fight, not just the relationship, everything. Can you believe what just happened? Kirk loses his mind, throws punches, and gets tossed out of his own house. This is the worst scandal to ever hit Kirk and Rasheeda's relationship, and it's still going strong. The worst part is that the story is far from done. What do you think about this crazy situation? Do you think Kirk deserved another chance, or did Rasheeda do the right thing by moving on? And let's talk about that fight. Was Kirk out of line, or did he have every right to lose it? Leave a comment now, because I know you all have some thoughts on this. Don't worry, this isn't over, and you don't want to be the last to know what happens next. If you want to keep up with every shocking update, every leaked detail, and every messy twist, you can know what to do. Hit the subscribe button and turn on all notifications. If you enjoy drama on the level of reality TV, hit the like button while you're here, because, let's face it, this is more outrageous than anything we've ever seen on television. Additionally, this controversy is too significant to keep to yourself, so remember to share this video with your friends. That's all for now, everyone, but keep your eyes peeled for the next part in this drama. It will happen very shortly. Until then, continue to watch, continue to comment, and as always, continue to be messy.